spreading the news.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
New York, I love you. I love New York.
What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of the Off the Ball podcast with me, your host, Chris LeBron. I'm also the CEO of the Off the Ball Network, and this show is brought to you by SeatGeek, your number one place for all your ticket needs. Go use promo code Off the Ball Network, all caps, and get $20 off your first purchase. That is SeatGeek.com, your number one place for all your ticket needs. And I got a great show for you guys today. I'm super excited to have this guy on. He's one of the best in the business. We're going to talk all things NBA draft and have a fun show with this. You guys know I love talking NBA draft and all that, and this is one of the best in the biz. So I got my guy, Isaac, Global Scouting, the man, the myth, the legend. What's going on, bro?
It's going great. Thank you for having me. I love the introduction. But I'm glad to be on. I've watched one episode, I think, with one of the guys from No Ceilings. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to finally be a part of this, and I'm glad to talk some draft stuff.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Like I said, we're happy to have you on the show, man. So before we start off and get into all the good stuff about this, potential groundbreaking class and all that, let's get to know a little bit about yourself, Isaac. So first of all, how did you get started? Was it just a passion for it? Was it, what exactly got you into the world of scouting basketball?
So with the draft, Draft Express was they've been the biggest for years. When I was a kid, I remember coming home from school, looking at the mock drafts they posted on the website. That kind of got my draft love. Didn't know much about basketball as a middle schooler.
Mm-hmm.
So then I transferred high schools my sophomore year to Charlestown. Was on a JV team, and that was the first time I ever made a team my sophomore year. But I had access to the huddle, and I always would watch the varsity film of the other team. And I would at first it was just like a little hobby of mine, just starting writing down little details about the players in the team.
Mm-hmm.
And my head coach didn't even ask me for it, but I just had a bunch of papers, gave it to him, and it was just reports on the team. And then the whole year of my sophomore year of my JV year, I was just writing reports for the team and just, even if they didn't need it, I'm pretty sure they used it. I don't actually remember. And then junior year, I got moved up to varsity. Senior year varsity, so I didn't really have time. I watched film, but I didn't have time to do all the writing stuff. That was more so the coach.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as the season ended, I made my brand. Went to Instagram at first, moved over to Twitter after a year. Or I'm doing both now.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's just, it's just something I love doing. It's a hobby right now. I absolutely just love the connections I've made, seeing the development of young players. It's just and helping people, accomplish a dream. If I can help someone, reach their goal of making the NBA or playing basketball professionally, it doesn't have to be NBA. It could be overseas, any of that kind of stuff. It's just awesome to try to make other people happy, and also just it's fun. It really is fun for me.
It really is fun, and I kind of did the same thing stuff, and I got to a point doing a basketball show, and I was like, you know what, let me start doing some draft stuff. And I remember I had Matt Babcock was my first guy I had on, and I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't know how to, because I was my first big guest, and I was nervous. I remember the show was mid-afternoon, and all day I'm just nervous, as if I'm having to take a test. I was like, oh my God, how do I go about it? Do I, should I ask that? Should I ask this? And I'm just I was just you know what? Just go in there and just be yourself. And I wound up and it kind of evolved. Yeah, just go be yourself. And it turned into a whole bunch of stuff, doing a lot of draft stuff. And like you said, helping players. I remember there was one point a player's dad reached out to me because I was interviewing a lot of college kids, COVID year. And they have a lot of time, and I was doing a lot of lower level D1 guys, and dad reached out to me and said, can you have my son on your show? I was like, that's crazy, bro.
That's awesome.
I'm like, that's wild. They're reaching out to me for their son to get on the show. And it actually helped a little bit going overseas and all that, and had
that's great.
And did some stuff in the G League and all that. So that was pretty cool to get that. But like I said, helping others and all that, that's what it's about and all that. And that's 100%. Cool when you can help and all. But when did you when did you start seeing, that okay, you're doing it, but now there's people that actually like are like hitting me up on it on Twitter and like care about what
Mm.
my, what I have to say about this player, because you've grown a, you've grown a nice following on
Yeah.
social media, where people like you post something and your comment section is going crazy, like and all that. So when did
Yeah.
you start seeing that interaction where people are starting to notice you and you're like, whoa, like I'm getting blown up right now?
Probably after COVID happened. I felt like there was such a long process there. It is extended out for so long, and I felt like I don't know. On Instagram, I just was coming up with new content nonstop, even throughout when there was no basketball being played. And I just
Mm-hmm.
felt like that's when I started to feel my account start to grow just a little bit more. And I felt like whenever I moved over to Twitter, after a couple months, once I got the hang of Twitter, I felt like that's when I really started to, get a
Mm-hmm.
nice little following. And I love interacting with people. I don't. You can check like almost any of my like on my recent mock draft. I'll try to respond to every comment. I want to do
Yes,
my
you
best to
do.
respond to every single person because
I respect
I
that.
know
I respect
there's
that. I
yeah,
respect
because I
that a
know
lot.
there's some people that will act like they're too big to respond to an average fan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'll ever be too big. I'll never will think that. I don't have an ego at any point. I just want to try to at least, give them the best knowledge to my ability to my ability. Share whatever my knowledge I have for them and give my opinion and stuff like that.
No, like I said, I respect that because, like you said, there's a lot of people out there that would just post and they won't respond to anyone.
Ever.
And,
Yeah.
but you're always commenting and you're always respectful and all that. And that's the cool part. And I think that's
Hmm.
why you've grown you've grown your accounts and all that to where you have, because you do, and people love that. Whether
Yeah.
regardless of the question, people when you respond, it makes people like, oh, he actually is listening to us, and
Hmm.
you get that, and now you have someone that's going to constantly, whenever you post something, they're going to be there. And I think that's
Yeah.
very important, is the engagement, not just putting out the content, but having that engagement. I think is really important in order to grow your brand. Very important.
100%. 100%. I remember I got a DM one time. It was a request. Sometimes it takes me a little bit to respond, but I responded.
Mhm.
And as soon as I responded, the first thing he said was like, "Holy crap!" Usually, pages like you never respond to me,
Yeah,
and I don't know why. It just made me feel so good. I was like,
yeah.
man, I was like, I could have made that person's day just from that one response.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I always respond to whoever, if they want me on the show, whoever, any questions,
Hmm.
because you just never know. Because
Yeah.
I was, like I said, I was at that point where I didn't know what I was doing. I was reaching out to people to come on my show, and in some, when you in the beginning and you don't have a name, you're going to get shunned. You're going to get left on red,
Yep.
and there's people that get very discouraged about that.
Hmm.
But I just tell people, just keep going, just keep trying and all that.
Yep.
And you just never know. Like, I didn't know Matt Babcock would respond to my email, and he did. And then it just led to, a whole bunch of stuff,
Yeah.
and a whole bunch of great networking and all that. So it's definitely been fun. But for you, I want to ask you one thing about scouting and all that.
Okay.
What's the biggest thing you've learned from the
Mm.
first time you evaluated a player or a class or whatever, from now? What's been the biggest thing you've learned personally from the amount of years that you've been doing scouting?
Um, Probably keep an open mind. I need to know that. I think when I first came in, I felt like I knew everything with like a prospect. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. My opinion would be made up on the prospect right away. I feel like,
Mm-hmm.
dude, you would talk to me like I would be a brick wall basically. I was like, no, I already think this about this player, and whatever you say can change. And I feel like after the first year or so, I'm like, okay, I need to, I can't have an ego with this. I need to understand like I'm gonna have misses. I'm gonna have people that I get
Mm-hmm.
right. Like it's gonna happen naturally, no matter how many years you do it. It's just gonna happen. So I just need to be more open minded. I also at first wasn't too big into like the in depth stats and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like me improving more, just like I would only watch film. I would look at the basic stats, but I feel like watching or looking more of their, how good they are driving left compared with the left hand side floater or something like little stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Yeah.
I feel like I've improved there as well.
Yeah. How much do you take away from, all right, stats, looking at stats, and then just the eye test? Because a lot of people say, well, you
Yeah.
got to look at, there's the eye test and all that. And sometimes stats might not show that, for, I remember, for instance, like Cole Anthony. I remember people were really, worked up about the shooting percentage, but it's also like, okay, well, you gotta look at the team he's with,
Yeah.
the system and all that. So how much do you factor in, when you scouting someone? Okay, all right, you look at, all right, he got 9 points a game and all, but when I watch him, I see someone who could be an 18 to 20 point per game. Like, how do you decipher that?
It can be tough sometimes, but I definitely value the the eye test a little bit more. But also, whenever I watch the eye test, I need the stats to back it up a little bit. So if someone's shooting, let's see here, like a touch factor, I want like a good way to see touch is some people say free throws, but I also think floaters.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good way to see how their touch really is. That could help me a lot. Um, but yeah, I value more of the eye test, to be honest. I still think stats are important, and especially the in-depth stats of it.
Mhm.
But probably about like 70% eye test, 30% stats for me.
Yeah, I feel like the eye test is the ultimate thing, and then like all the advanced stats are like the icing on top. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
now, all right,
100%.
and then you look at the stats. You're like, okay, all right, that makes sense.
Mhm.
That's going to help me with my evaluation of this player. I
Exactly.
think that's, but eye test to me, I feel like sometimes some people use too much with the analytics and all that,
Mhm.
trying to evaluate, but sometimes you just got to watch a guy play and be like, yeah, he could do that the next level.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's that simple.
it
you know
is.
Sometimes it's just that simple, like, yeah, this guy gonna get buckets at the next level. You can just tell,
Yeah.
so sometimes, the eye test is the, so like you mentioned, you're gonna get guys wrong, right? It's gonna happen, and some
Mhm.
people are afraid to admit that,
Yeah.
but I've always, like, even in my few times, just looking at players, you get them right and you get some wrong. For you, I want to ask you two things. What's the
Okay.
one player or couple players that you're proud that you're like, all right, I got this one right, and then like you put a
Mhm.
feather on your cap, like, oh, I got this one right, and then give me a guys where you're like, wow, I can't believe I missed that one.
Most proud of, I would
And it
say
doesn't have to be
back.
the obvious guy. It doesn't have to be like you thought Luca was going to be that, or someone
Yeah,
obvious.
yeah.
Give me someone that, like, mid range, late first round, that you think was that went
Uh,
right.
he went 21st. Tyrese Maxey, but I had him top 5. I had him ranked 5th on my final draft board.
Ooh, okay.
So I felt like that was, that was pretty. I felt like pretty proud of that. I know some had him like late lottery, if I
Yeah.
recall, looking at some
Yeah.
draft boards, but he still ended up slipping farther than expected. But I had him top 5. I believed in like the elite touch, the shot making ability. He was a very good perimeter defender. I just
Mhm.
trusted a lot of the swagger he had. I just
Yeah.
loved
Yeah.
almost everything about him. Even though he was shooting like high 20% from three, I trusted the shot from the outside.
Mhm.
Believe he shot 40% last year from three. From
Yeah.
three.
Yeah.
Biggest miss will probably stick in the same draft. I had him outside of my top 20. Desmond Bain. Desmond Bain, I missed on pretty bad. I seen him as just like a regular role player. I thought he was
Mhm.
just. I was worried about the lack of length a little bit.
Mhm.
I think he only had like a 6'6" wingspan, which was just
Yeah, he got the
neutral.
little bulldog arms.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and then I don't know, the shot mechanics. Like I knew he was gonna be a great shooter, but I was a little bit skeptical.
Mhm.
But yeah, I had him like 25th, and he's probably been like a top 6 player in that class, top 5 player of that class. So that was probably one that I would like to have back. I would have liked to have. I had like he's been a lot better this year for the Pacers, but I had like Aaron Neesmith over him. I don't think stuff like that. So probably Desmond Bain would be the one I wish I could get back.
So speaking of that 2020 class, obviously that was a very tough class to evaluate because
Hmm.
obviously, March Madness, the tournament had been canceled and all that. And obviously the world went closed pretty much, and there was no workouts and all that. Zoom workouts. I remember talking to some guys, they're like, yeah,
Yeah,
I just had a
that was an
Zoom
interesting
workout.
time.
Like, I just had a Zoom workout. Like, it was very weird and all that. So do you think uh, how do you think that draft class was just maybe the toughest to evaluate because you just don't it was not a regular, there was no Chicago Combine, there wasn't any of that, and like that's why we maybe have a lot of misses in that class because it's very hard to evaluate guys just like what we're doing on a Zoom call
Yeah,
and all that. Like, it's pretty hard to do it. You have to be in the gym and watch all that and see how they to perform in under pressure moments in March Madness and all that. Do you think that really hurt, a lot of guys, and why we're seeing maybe guys in that class struggling or maybe getting very overdrafted?
Yeah, for sure. Because I remember if I recall correctly, I was super high on a guy like Denny Avdia, who was still playing up until a little bit before the draft. But it was also probably recency bias on my part. Because I feel like I watched enough film on them by summertime at least. I watched all the college prospects and all that stuff. So I can think the draft happened in October, if I recall. So,
Late.
so it was just I got dried up of watching the college prospects over and over, and then I think I ended up having Denny Avdia fourth just because some of the recency bias. It definitely affected my evaluations, I feel like, just a little bit, but it also could lead to like some overthinking too if you kept watching film over and over.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It definitely was weird, and I definitely think it affected not only the players but some of the evaluators.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it was such a long process that you said people were just tired of it, and
Yeah.
like I just think that really hurt. And I always wondered, like a guy like an Obi Toppin, like if he had March because he was Player of the Year and all that, like what happens to him? Does he go higher and all that? But and I remember talking to some, because you just you watch him play and you just see this athletic guy and you're like, wow. But then I remember talking to Rafael Barlow, and I'm like, I love Obi Toppin. Like he's first of all, he's a New York guy and all that. I'm from New York,
Yeah.
and all that. And I was like, he's an athletic freak. He's on, and he started teaching me about twitchiness. That's when I learned about Twitch and all that. I was like, oh, and I was like, and now and I'm like, okay. And then I started watching, and that's why I like learning from other guys, a bunch of scouts. I love learning from you guys because it gives you different takes and all that. And I remember watching, I was like, oh, okay, and I'm gonna watch it from that perspective. And I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
And now you see with the Knicks, you see that a lot and all that. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. And that's why people aren't like saying he's the number one guy and all that. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. But I wonder if he did have it because he was so prolific that year, would he have gone higher? Would he have gone lower because maybe he gets exploited in March Madness? I think he's one case where he went right in the middle. Maybe, but maybe he goes higher, maybe he goes lower. I always wonder with Obi Toppin what happens if we did have a regular March Madness.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions about that because I think they only had like 2 losses that year. He was leading
they were rolling
a mid-major to they almost beat Kansas in the Molly Championship. Like he was dominant all year. You could have seen him going up as high as probably like 4 to the Bulls or something. Like you never 5 to the Cavs that year.
I heard a lot of Cavs talk. I remember. A lot of Cavs talk.
So I think there's definitely would have been a possibility where he would have went higher, or even any other player. Maybe Max, because Kentucky was rolling that year. Maybe Max, he goes, he doesn't drop to 21. Maybe they go crazy in March and he's a lottery pick. A lot of what ifs for sure that year.
Yeah, a lot of what ifs, and that's a class that's like very polarizing because of that. Because guys, there's been a lot of misses so far, and it's still early. But for you, when do you feel like you're ready to give up on a prospect? Because I feel like you hear it a lot, and I'm sure you see it. People try to give up on a guy 10 games in, like, all right, he ain't it and all that. It's like that's probably too early and all that. But like, when do you feel like, okay, I think this player is what he is? I know sometimes it factors because
there's a lot of factors.
Tops at 25 and all that, and he takes off. So but like for you, when do you feel like, okay, I think I'm.
It depends. Are we referring to them when they get to the NBA or before NBA?
At the NBA.
Okay, I try to give it to the end of the rookie contract. To be honest, I try my best to. There's some I'll say his name, Johnny Davis. He's having some struggles right now.
Yeah, he's a perfect example.
I had him seventh or sixth on my final draft board. Just love the mid-range shot making ability and the tough defense he played. But at the same time, his lower base right now just looks a little different. But I know he had an injury he was struggling with. And the lack of burst, he wasn't really creative off the bounce, is kind of showing a lot more in the NBA and D League. I don't want to give up on him yet. I still have some hope. I would definitely give it about 3-4 years, and then that's when I start to, question some things and start to not, maybe give up a little bit. Like not them as a total NBA player, just of what I think they could have been.
Yes, yeah, their ceiling or whatever. Yeah, no, definitely. And he's a perfect example because he's probably the one I'm referring to where people flat out just gave up on him right away.
Yeah.
And it's like, I saw the jump from freshman year to sophomore year, and it was a big leap. Maybe he's just a little bit of a late, like Obi Toppin was a late, bloomer and all that. Some guys just progress a little later than others. I think
100%.
sometimes we get spoiled with some guys just dominating from the jump and all that. And he's the case where situation too, like all that. But with the Wizards possibly being sellers at the deadline, and giving up a bunch of guys, maybe we'll see him towards the end of the season, and we'll see what he's able to do. I'm sure he'll be up and he'll be playing. So with everything going on there, so he's someone I don't give up. I had him top 10 too, so I still got faith in him. But it does seem like
100%.
Especially, but also it feels like with the way the league goes, they give up on guys probably too quick, and that's probably why people give up on guys.
It happens.
It happens probably way too much in the NBA, where we're giving up on guys way too early, and but situation too matters too.
100%.
That's a big thing. Situation. Do you factor that in when you see a guy like, all right, he's going to this team, like, oh man, maybe he might not have the success that I think he would have if he was going somewhere else. Do you factor that in when you try to evaluate, try to see a player like 5 years out?
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. I think fit plays everything, because if a project comes into a situation where the team's trying to win championships, like the Warriors, there's some players on that team that
it sounds good, right? It's like Wiseman going there sounds good, but then you're like, okay, like it's like, well, he's going to a team that's in win now mode, and they don't really have the patience to develop, so like it sounded good at first, and now it's like, okay, maybe that wasn't really a good fit.
Yeah, and also in Wiseman's defense, he's missed a lot of time dating back to his senior year of high school, like just with nonstop injuries. He missed so much time to where he could have developed something, and now he's fallen so far behind the curve where it's just going to be, it's going to be a hard hill for him to climb.
Yeah, no, that tough situation. He's probably someone that maybe benefits going somewhere else, because they just don't have patience. They're trying to win championships there, and they're not trying to develop a kid. And like you said, there's not a lot of basketball in him. Injuries, and then Memphis, he played 3 games at Memphis.
3 games.
So like there's just not a lot of basketball in there, and so they just don't have the patience to try to develop these guys.
It's hard for teams to balance win now mode while also developing the young guys. It really is hard for teams. Like for whenever they were suffering all those injuries, Jordan Poole got a ton of minutes, but is he who he is today if they never had those injuries and he's just stuck on the bench? Like, I don't know. It's just like stuff like that plays a factor in it, I believe.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Like, what if if they did develop, maybe Jordan Poole is not Jordan Poole, and Jordan Poole is huge in their championship run and all that. So that's very it's just sometimes fit situation is very, very key and all that.
Right.
Then you see like Houston, where they have all this talent, but they're just so immature. They're just so immature and all that, and then like it's like, okay, yeah, we got all this talent, but they don't have the right culture or the right coach or the right development and all that. And you're just seeing like just a mess, an absolute mess over there. It's kind of wild what's going on over there.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. I was actually watching a little bit of them the other day. I think it was like 2 days ago. And there was a play that stood out where Sengun got the ball in the post. All 4 players spaced like 2 almost at half court. There's like 10 seconds on the shot clock, and there's no cutting, no ball movement, just everyone clapping, calling for the ball. And Sengun does a fade.
Yeah. I don't know if you had posted someone had posted on Twitter.
I had a clip of that.
Yeah, and you had clipped. I think you had clipped that, and then someone had posted like right after you did that, like what's like the biggest like pet peeve in like basketball? And I was like, when players they're clapping for the ball, like, and it's like, you're not.
That's some middle school stuff. I
can't stand that. I can never even playing pickup ball. If someone does that, I'm like, yo, why are you doing that? It's so irritating.
I was literally at my girlfriend's little sister's game today, and they were doing it. And NBA players are doing it. Like, they're doing the same thing as these little kids. Like,
oh man, that irked my.
Set some off ball screens, cut, move without the ball.
It was Jabari Smith. I think that was.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, dude, you're just.
And then the body language after made it worse, where he just, shoulders slumped down and like head went down, and Sengun yelled something. I don't know what.
Yeah,
there's some stuff they need to work out. Yeah, it's gonna take more than a top draft pick to figure it out.
No, and unfortunately, Silas might not be around for that. He'll probably
Yeah.
be let go and all that. He'll be the scapegoat, but it's just that whatever they're doing there is just does that, and that can hurt young players'
Hmm.
confidence and just what they're trying to build because they have serious like blue chip type prospects there.
Yeah.
But when you don't have the structure and all that, you don't got player development and all that, and the coach just is like, I think I just lost everything. It's just that's
It's
you get
hard.
what the Rockets are right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
It's pretty
100%.
wild. But let's go to this 2023 class, man. I think you've heard about it,
That's
right?
it.
There's a couple guys that potentially could be game changers and all that. That guy from
Uh-huh.
France is pretty good, I heard.
Yeah. Whatever his name is.
Whatever his name. What's crazy with that? I thought I would see more teams trying to tank to try to
Hmm.
get into sweepstake, but there's not that many bad teams. There's like 5 really bad teams. I thought
Yeah.
there'd be at least 10 to 12 teams trying to really go for it, but it seems like right now, I know the deadline still we got a little bit, a
Yeah.
few weeks away, but it's like it seems like teams are trying to go for the playoffs and all that, which I don't know if
Mhm.
that's a good thing or bad thing, but I thought there would be more teams trying to go win it for Wemby and all that. But I know, Wemby, Scoot, there was our the potential top 2 prospects. But for you, I want to ask you one thing. When you're doing do you believe in rankings or do you believe in tiers when you're doing your stuff?
Uh, I've always done rankings, but I've always wanted to get into tiers, but it's kind of like tricky for me
Mm-hmm.
because there's some like an NBA ready guy, like he's NBA ready to produce right away. Doesn't have the quite high ceiling of another guy that's very raw, but has
Yeah,
a
yeah.
low floor. Like, how do I tier that? I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. Yeah.
rankings are very tricky in general, especially just from like not like a team. Like if you're like say a GM for the Rockets, your rankings is only completely different from someone
Mm-hmm.
like on the Pistons.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like I don't really have like prospect rankings on a team. It's just kind of just in general. So it can be tricky, but I just do like 1 through 100, no tiers.
Yeah, and I've seen that. And then you're just basing it strictly off like this is the guys I like, or are you saying, oh, I think these guys will be in this range?
Yeah.
Or is it just straight off like this is simply the top 100 guys that I like, and this is my order of guys who I like 1 from 100.
Basically projecting who I think will be the best players in order from that. Who will be the best players in the NBA in that order? It's
I
always
think
going to be
yeah.
quite inaccurate because like it gets a little tricky after like
Mhm.
40-ish, 50-ish
Yeah,
guys because then
no,
it's
yeah.
just
It's just
you know
eventually who you like at that
yeah.
point, right? Whatever. Like, yeah,
But yeah, I don't know. I like this draft though. I really do. I'm excited to see how it all turns out when it comes lottery time and stuff.
yeah, so obviously, we got Scoot and we got Victor, but like it gets interesting at 3 because everyone's 3 is essentially different. It's Cam Whitmore, it's Keontae George, is one of the Thompson twins. You got so many. Yeah, I remember Whitehead at one point, a lot of preseason guys, he was threes and all that. So,
Hmm.
you know, for you, like, are you set at Victor at Scoot at being the top 2 guys? Do you think like there's no change and all that? And do you think with Victor, like, I know it reminds a lot of people of Zion and Ja, where like we might think Ja was the better player, but like financially as like an organization, there's no way you could have passed up on Zion because
Right.
it's just too much money.
Similar
Like
situations there.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's kind of similar where like I mean when we found out Zion was gonna with Pelicans gonna pick like their ticket sales and season tickets
Hmm.
went through the roof and like
Yeah.
yeah, John may be the better player now, but like still, that was a business decision that helped the Pelicans. And I feel
100%.
like this is the same way. Like people, I'm like, Scoot may be the better player. He may
Right.
be a 10-time All-Star, maybe an MVP, but you can't pass up on Victor simply
Nah.
because
Yeah.
he's going to like and you hear like a lot of business people like, yeah, he's going to make a team. Their valuation is going to go through the roof when they
Hmm.
get him because he's just such a money maker. And I think I agree. I think you can't pass up on him strictly because financially you're going to make a
Literally.
lot of money, jerseys and all
Yeah.
that. It's just the
Yeah.
financial, like you'd be stupid to be like, to not take him number 1
Right.
because just simply because of money.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there could be a scenario like that because I know some people have concerns of if Victor, is injury prone in his career if he has like because he has a very thin frame at 7'5", so
Yeah.
that could and when you're that tall, it's just like how much can he really bulk up and stuff, and will he be able to avoid injuries? And like with Scoot, I think Scoot's is phenomenal. Like he's a number one pick in almost any other draft you can name.
He really
Like
is.
he really is. Um, just so special with his finishing. He's improved as an outside shooter and playmaker from looking from now to a year ago in the G League. Um, but I think it's kind of set in stone for me at this point at 1 and 2. But at 3, I have Amon Thompson. I think he's pretty special as well.
Mhm.
He's probably the best. He is the best athlete while also being the best playmaker in the draft, in my opinion. That's pretty rare to
Mhm.
happen. And I think he has some defensive upside. Still has ways to go in defensive end. I think he has his lapses, but the flashes are
Yeah.
just unreal.
Scary.
The combination of the speed, burst, vertical pop, explosiveness, all that stuff is just something like I've never seen before for someone at 6'7", especially if his just overall feel for the game is just so, so awesome. I think he can potentially change the franchise. I really do. I think he can be the primary guy. I've compared him to a little bit of a bigger John Morant. That was my player comparison for Ramen Thompson. Um, I think it's kind of like a big 3 draft this year. I know some will say big 2, but I really do believe it's like a big 3 draft between Vic, Scoot, and Amen.
Yeah, and obviously when we talk about him, man, like you mentioned all that, his vertical, his burst is absolutely insane. Like he's a freaky athlete and all that, playmaker and all that special. But they worry about the shooting, right? So for
Yeah.
you, watching him, do you feel like the shooting can come along at the next level? Or, I'm not saying he's going to be,
Yeah.
a 38% 3-point shooter. And
Right.
I don't think that's what people are expecting. But do you think it could come along where, where he can be a respectable shooter and people aren't just, dropping everyone, in coverage,
Yeah.
and all that?
I want to believe in the shot, but it's hard for me to right now. I'm not a big believer in his shooting at all. I think regardless, even if he does improve, I still think teams are going to go under in screens. They're going to play off of him. He's
Mhm.
not going to be a catch and shoot threat in his career ever. I don't think. Um, so it's tricky. That'll kind of force him to be ball dominant in some ways,
Mhm.
because then if teams are just not respecting him from the outside and he's playing off the ball, then you're not going to he's not going to reach the ceiling.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I'm not a complete believer in the upside. I think there's a lot to do with the mechanics he needs to improve on. It's just touch seems inconsistent from the outside. But it's weird though because his brother Asar, I actually am a believer in his jump shot. I think he's eventually going to
Yeah.
shoot at mid 30% from 3. He's improved a lot from a year ago. I trust his touch. I think he has great touch. But with Amin, I'm pretty. I'm not. I wouldn't bet on him. Being a respectable shooter from the outside.
Yeah, and I saw you did a mock draft, and he went to you had him in going
Wizards
to the
recently,
was it the
or
Wizards? The Hornets, the
uh,
Hornets.
Hornets. Hornets.
Yeah,
That's
the
right.
Hornets.
That
So
was
how would you see
yeah,
a potential fit with LaMelo there? Because obviously LaMelo is ball dominant right now.
yeah,
So how would you see a situation like that? Would that be an ideal fit for him? Like you just mentioned, you're not buying the shot long term.
yeah.
He would probably have to play some off ball in
Right,
Charlotte.
for sure.
So I mean, I've heard people say, well, LaMelo could play off ball and all that, but I feel like, I mean, it's gonna be hard to be like, yeah, LaMelo, you got to take a backseat to a rookie and all that,
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like, I
right.
don't know how that's gonna work. So like, is that a fit that can work? I don't know.
It's obviously not the perfect fit for him for Amen, but I think they can make it work because given Lamelo a guy that can pressure the rim a ton. I know Lamelo isn't the greatest rim pressure right now,
Mhm.
but they're both like talented playmakers, like elite
Yeah,
playmakers. Both were the best playmakers in the draft. Well, Halliburton, I guess, over Lamelo depends. Um, but I don't know. I feel like experimenting I'm in at the 4 spot would be interesting, or maybe it would be tricky with him. It's really tricky with him just due to the lack of shooting, especially if Lamelo already having the keys of the offense, like you said. They're not going to take those keys away and just give it to Thompson. It ain't going to happen, especially with a
yeah,
rookie right away. So there could be some issues. It would, they would have to definitely work through some things to figure it out. Um, but it is tricky with his shooting. If he's not having the keys to the offense, there's a low floor there. There really
yeah.
is due to lackluster shooting.
Yeah, yeah. But if you're Charlotte, if you have the third pick, you're probably going to take him, because of that talent alone. And you just say, all right, let's just figure it out.
Yeah.
You just take the talent and you're like, we figure it out from there. Cause they need talent, especially they're another team that might be getting rid of a lot of guys, they might be sellers at the deadline and all that. But give me a, we know about the Thompson twins. We know about, Vic and Scoot and all that, but give me a couple guys, small school guys, non-power 6 guys that you're really liking, that do you feel like could potentially be lottery picks, first round picks, or guys that we should be probably looking more at?
There's 2 that come to mind that I can see being first round picks that have been majors. Got Max Lewis from Pepperdine. I think he could sneak into the top 10 range, like very back end top 10 though. Like he's awesome. He might be on a little bit of a bad team right now. But he looks really, really good. And another name is Deron Holmes, the second, out of Dayton.
He's good.
I know he's kind of all over the place on boards and stuff. I have him as a first round guy now. I don't know if he still does. I haven't checked in about a week, but he led the nation in dunks. He was number 1 in all of Division I basketball.
Yeah.
While also, being a great rim protector. I love what he does on the defensive end. Has some post skills to him. I think there's been some passing flashes as well. I think those 2 guys, Holmes, I don't know if he'll end up getting drafted lottery, but I could see myself having him in the lottery range on my draft board. I think those 2 guys really stand out as mid-major talents.
Oh yeah, those 2 guys are tremendous. It is just like with Maxwell Lewis, he's kind of been the flavor of the last 2 months. He's been someone that's been rising. You heard about him a little bit preseason. I heard about him, and then as the season goes, he just keeps rising. He went from being second round pick to rising into the back of the first, and then, like you said, I've seen some mock drafts of recent that people have posted, and they have him in that 10 range, in the 10 to 12 range, and it's like, it's been real. His game has been really impressive. And Holmes too has been really impressive. Dayton's been playing a little bit better basketball. They had been up and down this season, but his skill set is really impressive. Big man, 6'10" and all that, can move and all that. He's real talented. But I want to get into guys that are your biggest risers and biggest fallers since preseason. So guys who you had high on before the season that that have dropped for you, and then the same thing, the opposite, guys who are lower, you had lower, that have risen the most since your before the season started.
So the biggest riser, I think many people might say, is Bryce Sensabaugh. I had him unranked. Knew very, very, very little about him coming into the season. But at that, he's built like a linebacker. I think he's like 6'6", 235. Like, he is strong, but he's also he's a little bit quicker than you might think, and he's also like a 3-level scorer. Like, it don't matter what contest you have on him. He has a little bit DeMar to his game in the mid-range area. Like, he is so skilled, arguably the best scoring wing in the draft. I think he's the best scorer in all of college basketball. Yeah. Like, he's just so skilled. And I think his passing has come along a little bit, especially throughout conference play, which is awesome to see. He's near my lottery range right now, and I had him unranked, which is not very common to say the least. And then someone I had high and that's dropped, probably Tyrese Proctor. I had him in the first round range. And some guys just aren't one and dones, and maybe it takes him he's a sophomore and he ends up going back in the first round range. But been a pretty down year for him. He's shown some flashes for sure as a passer and a shooter, but the percentages hasn't been there. The lack of burst and handle a little bit. I have questions about him being a primary creator now. Just hasn't been able to make shots either. Like, even when he's open, it seems like sometimes the results just aren't there.
You saw that today too. You saw that today when they played Miami, where like you see him, he's creating a little bit, but it's not going in. It's just not going in. It seems like it's just been like that case for him all year. And I don't know if it's so much just they're trying to figure out who's that guy that scorer from the outside, because obviously you got Derek there and all that, but it just seems like it's not going in. And like you said, he's getting good shots. He's gotten good shots this year. Yeah. It's just not going in right now.
Yeah, it's sometimes that happens to young guys. They're put in the big stage like Duke or any of the other blue bloods, and it just they're not ready yet. And it's okay if they're not ready. Now, not everybody. not everyone's gonna be a one and done. You know what I'm saying? So it might take
Yeah.
him 2 years. I haven't given up on him as a prospect. I still believe in his passing skill and his shooting ability. I think he has good touch around the rim. He needs to develop a little bit more of a left hand. I feel like as a finisher, I think he was shooting 33% at the rim of his left is when I last
Yeah.
checked about a week ago. So he has some areas I would like that he needs to improve upon. I'd like to see him come back for one more year as a sophomore. I don't know what Roach plans are, if he's going to come back, if he's come back for a senior year, or if he's gonna
Yeah.
that's up in the air.
We got a good
But
recruiter class coming in next year too, so that
yeah,
could be a
they
factor
do.
too.
Yeah, so it'll definitely be interesting. But Proctor's probably the one that's kind of I don't think he's a top 100 guy anymore. If he is, he's probably in the very back end of it for me.
Yeah, no, he's definitely had ups and downs. And another guy on Duke, Dariq Whitehead, someone that, like I said, I saw people have him as high as being the third guy preseason and all that.
Mhm.
And he's had a very up and down season. And it looked like a few games ago, a stretch that he was finally figuring out. But then the last few games, he seems like he's just been out of it
Yeah.
and just hasn't found that that consistency yet. So, what's your evaluation on Dariq?
Yeah, I'd say a little bit of the injury, probably like
The
some
injury,
missing
yeah,
some of the
that's another thing.
preseason.
The injury
Yeah,
that
played a
affected
factor in
him.
it. And at first he was coming off the bench, he was getting limited minutes. Trying to not throwing him in the fire, which I actually did respect and I like.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I don't. He doesn't look as explosive or quick as he did back in high school. I still think he's like still trying to get his feet back under him a little bit. But there's been flashes where he's looked great. I think he had a really great 4-game stretch a little bit ago. There are some flashes of shot creation. The handle needs, is a little bit limited. It looks like he struggles to create creation at times. But overall, I still like him as a prospect. I'm still holding on to my stock, especially what I saw in the high school film. I think there's just something there that he's going to get back where he hasn't looked like himself completely. But I'm still holding to my stock top 20. I like some of the stuff he does off ball and defense. He still has some areas where he's making freshman mistakes on the defensive end.
Yeah,
and that's common. But I'm still a believer. I still think he can be like a two-way threat in the NBA. It just may take some time for him to continue to get his feet back under him.
he may be just one of those guys where, they struggle in like BJ Boston. I always remember like BJ Boston was someone like top 5 pick and all that, and then he went to the second round. I don't know if Dariq will be a second round pick, but you never know and all that. But someone that you're like, all right, we saw the struggles in college, but like sometimes you gotta. All right, college is different. We know the level of basketball is different. You're playing a lot more half court basketball, and it's you got guys who were the guy in high school, with the ball in their hand freely doing whatever they want. Now they got to play more of a team style basketball and a very slower pace of basketball. And sometimes guys can't adjust to it because they just want the ball and be able to go. So I feel like a guy like Dariq, you're gonna look at the college film and be like, okay, there's something, but sometimes you're gonna be like, well, in the NBA, we're going to be playing more free. We're going to play more up-tempo basketball and all that. We're not going against zone defense and all that. Can he take his guy off the dribble? And I think he could still do that. And you can look at some of his high school stuff and say, okay, well, what can we take from high school that we think could work at the NBA level? Because that's probably more what the style of basketball he's going to play. So and like I said, it's a tough situation at Duke. Is the Coach K ain't there? You got John Shire trying to figure out all his stuff and all that. So
coach.
New coach and all that, trying to implement his own system and his style of ball and all that. So it's definitely a tough situation for him. But I think I still have my stock in him too. Like he's still going to be I don't think he'll drop like BJ Boston did that much, but I still think there's someone that's still very very special player and all that. Very but dude, like I said, Duke has like Derek Lively too, like someone that we saw like some shooting in high school and all that, and like we're not seeing that at all.
I don't think he's made a 3 this year.
No.
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 I think he's like 0 for 4 in the season or something like that.
Yeah. So I think it's an inexact science. The draft. Like there's just so many ways, and I'm sure you sometimes you probably drive yourself crazy. Like how did I get this? This and like 100%. How do I evaluate this guy? Like and all that. So like. Are there guys that you right now you simply like, oh my god, I can't figure this guy out?
Ooh, right now, Oh, that's a good one.
That whatever you're doing right now, they give you that. You're doing this right now,
Yeah,
Isaac. You're just like,
man.
oh man, they hurting my head. I need Advil after because I
This is
can't
gonna be a
figure them out.
popular one. It was a heated discussion on Twitter. Brandon Miller. You know,
Okay.
I've seen great opinions on both sides. I'm probably like right in the middle of it, where I
Mm-hmm.
have him like that 8-9 range on my board. Um, like there's games in college where he just looks, 30 points, back to back 30-point games where he is just looking
Mm-hmm.
unstoppable. But then there's also concerns. He's improved as a slasher, he has.
Yeah.
But I still have some, concerns about his
Yes.
upright when he's slashing and stuff like that, finishing through contact over similar size players. Um, but I know like some people have him 3, some people have him, I think, back into the lottery. I've seen.
Yeah.
He's just someone like I'm still trying to figure out and just see like am I nitpicking with him? Am I really
Mm-hmm.
just trying? Am I going too hard with him? Am I, I'm saying stuff like that, or is he just so productive? I need to look past some of the little flaws he has. I think
No,
he's
yeah.
probably the one that stands
He
out for me.
he's definitely one. And then I think another guy too is GG Jackson.
Mm,
I think he's another one because we see all the handles and all that. He's 6'10", and people are just like, "Oh my god!" Like they just
yeah.
fall in love, and then they'll be like, "That's gives you KD vibes and all that." But
Hmm.
if you factor in, there's a lot of factors with him too. Like, he is
Yeah.
super young too. Like, so like
Youngest in the draft. Youngest
he
eligible
what
for
is
the
he?
draft
He
right
just
now.
turned 18, like I believe, and like so like
Last month. Yeah.
the ceiling is. Like Jordan says, the
Yeah.
ceiling is the roof, whatever. It through the roof, whatever. It's
Yeah.
beyond that. Like it's crazy because he has handle and all that. He could score and all that, all this stuff. Um, and so I think he's another one. And but you factor in like the South Carolina, like he's playing for a school in South Carolina where he's has a lot of freedom too. Like he's because
Yeah.
they don't have a lot of talent there and all that. So I feel like he's one that's very, very
That's a good
like
one. Yeah.
Brandon Miller, where some people have him high, but you see him in the back end of the lottery too, or like the range. I think those two guys, I think their range is very wide. Like they can
It
go a
is.
lot of place.
Yeah.
It feels like but like I said, maybe people are overthinking it. But like I
Yeah.
said, it's just such a crazy process that like sometimes you do have to overthink those things,
Yeah. It's mind
but
games. It can be
yeah,
mind games sometimes.
yeah. So like speaking of Gigi Jackson, like what's your thoughts on him and all that? Because like I said, he has all the talent in the world, handle and
Mhm.
all that. So what's your feeling on Gigi?
I'm probably a little bit lower on him than
Mm-hmm.
average, or the typical scout or whatever. I think I have him like probably at like end of the I don't know, top 20s. I think is kind of where I have him right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not against anybody actually having him top 10 at all because the upside's legit. The flashes are crazy
Mm-hmm.
good, but I just worry about like what's his role going to be in the NBA. I think he kind of needs the ball a little bit to be productive on the offensive end, and I
Yeah,
don't
I
think
agree.
he's that level of talent to be a first option or second option on a team.
Mm-hmm.
But also at the same time, I have some concerns about the passing, but you have to look at the lack of floor space on that team. There's really just no shooter on that team other than him.
No, yeah,
So like,
exactly.
you have to factor in that every game he's playing, the other team is only focused on him. It's
Exactly.
the
Yeah,
scouting
yeah, yeah.
report is probably just him every single time.
Yeah.
So for the youngest guy in the draft to deal with that, and he's done really good. So I give him his flowers. He has done really good this season, a
Mm-hmm.
lot better than I anticipated, given his age and what I was seeing on the AAU film.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I'm a little bit lower on him, but I could see him, proving me wrong and being a top 10 player of this class, definitely.
Yeah. No, but he made some good points too, because like he's not playing with a lot of guys. So a lot of people talk about his playmaking is like, well, who's he passing the ball to? Like
Right,
he ain't
right.
passing to other guys, that are pros and all that. So like he's gonna have to he's taking a lot more shots because there's no one he can really pass the ball to that you can trust and all that. And I also think he made a good decision by going to South Carolina instead of North. I feel like if he had stuck with North Carolina, he would have got lost in the shuffle.
I
He would
could
have
see
got
that
lost in the
happening. Yeah.
shuffle, and maybe we're not even thinking about him right now. Maybe he's on the bench playing 10 minutes a game, maybe.
That's a big
And
what if, too.
yeah, that's another thing. Like, so I think, I know people say, well, we were seeing a lot of him and all that, and he's doing a lot with the ball and all that, but I think he made the right move just for that point, standpoint where, yeah, he's on South Carolina. They're not going to be a tournament team. Where if he was
Mhm.
at Carolina, they'd be a tournament team, but you're not going to play as much. you know.
Right.
So I think he made a right move in that, and he's definitely going to be one prospect that teams are going to really trying to figure out because the potential
Right.
is crazy.
Yeah. There's a lot of
Cra-
factors with them. There's a lot of
yeah,
factors with them for sure.
there's a lot of factors with him and all that. But one more guy I want to talk to about, and he's obviously another polarizing player. Is Amani Bates. Obviously, at one point people were like he's the next number one pick and all that, and obviously it didn't work out at Memphis. They tried to play him at the point and all that, and it just didn't work out. And at Eastern Michigan had some, unfortunate things happen, but not a good team too, not a good team at all, at all.
Pretty rough.
They've had some really bad losses and all, but he's shown out in a lot of games and shown his ability to just get you a bucket and all that. So I feel like he's another one where teams are it's gonna be not forget about the off the court stuff. We know that's gonna be big once we get to the combine and all that, but strictly on the court and his fit in the league, what is it? What is his fit? Because we know he could score. We know he could score. Love that, but it's obviously there's more to it than that, and where he's another one. His range is all over the place. He has a first round talent, but people might be like, well, off court stuff, and then he's such a ball dominant, scoring type, like he might be a back in a second round pick. So how do we figure out Amani Bates?
Yeah, it's tough with him. There's a lot of factors with him as well. But I DM'd him the other day. He DM'd back. We talked actually a little bit, just like a couple messages. I really feel like he found his love for the game again. I think with Memphis, it just looked like he wasn't, especially coming back after like around March. I don't know. He just didn't look completely happy. And then this year when he played against Michigan, like you just saw that energy from him. He looked like he was actually enjoying the game of basketball, which is what you love to see.
That was a good game too.
It was. There definitely could have been a bunch of like stuff like mentally with him he was struggling with. That happens with everybody. I think everyone has their mental issues. And with the love of the game coming back, he's one of two underclassmen currently averaging 20 plus points per game. Him and Brandon Miller. And the team isn't very good. They'll probably won't win the conference championship unless he goes off for like 40 a night, which he can.
He's gonna have to if they want him.
Yeah. Like he's one like at 6'10", he's such a talented scorer. He's a great shooter from the outside, a great touch. Sometimes on his jumpers though, he's not complete. Like he'll shoot it, but he won't follow through with it, which could lead to some bad misses. But his fit, he'll have to buy into a little bit more of an off-ball role. He's not going to be on the ball as much in the NBA. He'll have to, understand that he might have to take a step down to that third option or even a role player where he's just a spot-up guy with some occasional off-the-dribble jumpers. If he's able to buy into a role to where he's a little bit more not as the primary guy, as the third option, fourth option of the team, I think he can thrive. I think, or even to be like a microwave scorer off the bench. We see a lot of guys make a killing as a six-man.
That's a career, man. You can put 10 plus
Lou
years
Williams,
in the league.
Jamal Crawford, like the list goes on. If he buys into like maybe that 6-man role for a team where he's a microwave scorer off the bench, he could, he can have a hell of a career, which I think is probably best for him if he's able, buy into that role, take a little bit of step down than what he's been used to in, high school days, all that stuff. And
that's tough. And that's really tough for a kid to go from being that dude in high school. And it wasn't just like he was that, like he was on the cover of magazines. He's supposed to be the
next, as the next LeBron.
The next LeBron, the next great player. Like he wasn't just a regular high school star.
Yeah. Like it's tough for kids at that age. I think it's happened when he's in 8th grade. Like, and you're gonna have an ego. It's just gonna happen, no matter no matter what human you are. Natural. Like if you're getting told you're the next LeBron in 8th grade, like
exactly, yeah.
Like it is what it is. But it's I don't know. I hate that kind of stuff when kids get hyped up like super that much when they're like.
It's the era we live in, man.
It is social media. It's crazy.
Yeah. And like I think really what was it? Who just came out with a video? They talked about that, like how everyone has a mixtape now. Like
Austin Rivers.
Yeah. And
100%
like,
facts.
and I'm a little older. I'm 33, so like I remember growing up, like it was special to have a mixtape. Like you had to earn it to be on the Slam magazine or be in that. Like it was special. Now it's all you need, your phone, and clip a couple videos, and boom, you got a mixtape. And I think we see guys like Bates and all that. They, it's natural to fall into that and into that atmosphere and all that. And when they're saying you're the next Kevin Durant, you're the next LeBron, you're the next number one pick and all that. So people a lot of people like to bring people up and then break them down. And we saw that a lot with him. But I'm just glad
sad truth.
I'm glad he's able to get that love back for basketball, and he's playing good ball. And like I said, the team's not good, but he's doing his thing, and I still think there's a chance it will. I think he could be a first round pick. Whether it's the back end, he's gonna have to answer some questions, but I think just from what I'm hearing from people that he's definitely learned his lessons, because it could have easily his when that everything happened, it could have been it looked like it might have been
it spiraled out of control.
And it could have been like it was. I don't know if you ever watched the YouTube channel Stunted Growth, and they do a lot of videos on up in like high school stars and all that, and they get to the next level in college or the pros, and they just don't. And I was like, oh man, he might be one of those guys where like, man, he was that dude and then flamed out, or doesn't even make it to the league because of his own wrongdoings. But I'm hoping for the best for him. But he's still someone talented scorer and all that. And like I said, there's a role for that in the league. Come off the bench, play 10 plus years, and you could do that. There's roles in the league for that. So he's another 100%. One that's going to be very, very, very interesting to see what's going to happen with him, once we get to the draft, the combines and all that, and see how, teams look at him.
Right. There's a lot of stuff that'll play a factor in it, but I think he's truly gotten better on and off the court this year, which is what I love to see. Especially from like everything he's gone through from like 8th grade to now. Like everybody basically knows what he's gone through in some ways. So that'll be interesting to see how stuff plays out during the draft combine, because there's always like Jalen Williams last year in the combine. He was, I think, projected second round. Next thing you know, he's lottery. So that it happens every so often in the draft where the guy will show on the combine, the flat boards, fly up, mock drafts, all that stuff, and I could see that happen if Imani Bates. I really can.
Yep, and it's gonna be interesting to see what happens, because he's one of those polarizing players in the class. So, but Isaac, my man, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. It's been a pleasure having you on. I've been wanting to have you on for a while. I saw when you said you're taking podcast spots. I had to jump on that real quick before your DMs get flooded. But like I said, man, I'm happy to have had you on, and man, it was a pleasure.
Man, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. Whenever you text me, it's like, yes, let's make it happen.
Yeah,
let's make it happen. So thank you again for having me on. It was fun actually talking to you. It was enjoyable. We had a great talk. I'd love to be back on again whenever.
For sure. No, we're definitely going to have you back on. Definitely going to have you back on. Like I said, you're one of the best in the biz, and I've seen a lot of people interact with you, that I've had to network with in the draft community. So it was a pleasure to have you on. But before we sign off, tell the people where they can find you. You have any projects and all that, go in there and tell the people where they can find you and all your work. Oh, I think he froze. I think he froze, but yep. Well, we had him for a while, but it was fun though. But appreciate everyone for listening to this episode. This is one of my favorite shows I've done so far this year. And they're gonna do a lot more draft stuff as we go on. We got you back. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah, we lost you for a second. You got you on. Let's get it. We can get where all social is. No, we lost him. But you know what? That's fine.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, I got you now.
That was weird. Something popped up on my phone and it started buffering. That was weird.
Yeah, that's what happens. You're on the phone sometimes when you get like
Sorry about that.
All good. Just plug where you need to plug, man.
Instagram. You can follow me at Global NBA Scouting.
Nope.
On Twitter, Global Scouting _. And then same for TikTok and YouTube, just Global Scouting. DMs are always open to talk draft stuff. Hope y'all love my work. I try giving my best effort with anything I give out. And yeah, that's basically it.
Yes. So I'll make sure to put all his your links in the description so you can follow him. It's a great follow. Even if you're not a big draft head, if you just want to learn about all the the upcoming guys coming in. He's a great follow and very in-depth analysis. So on that note, you can follow me Off the Ball Pod on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Make sure to like the YouTube channel. Give it a sub, give it a like. Gotta do a lot more draft stuff. I love doing draft stuff. So we got a lot more. We're gonna have him back. Once we get closer to the draft, definitely we'll have him back on. Isaac, like I said, it was a pleasure. But on that note, be well, be safe, take care, guys. Peace out.
Start spreading the news.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
New York, I love you. I love New York.